Crack a chicken egg into a bowl, and the claim sounds ridiculous. That is one cell. You can see a hard shell, ropes of cloudy white, a wobbling yolk, and sometimes a tiny pale spot on top. A normal cell is supposed to be microscopic. This thing can cover half a frying pan. So is an egg really one gigantic cell? The clean answer is partly. The yolk begins as one enormous reproductive cell, the hen's oocyte. But the whole egg you hold in your hand is a package built around that cell. The white, the shell membranes, the shell, and the little air pocket are not parts of one giant cell in the usual sense. They are materials added later by the hen's reproductive tract. That distinction gets blurred because the word egg has two jobs. In biology, an egg can mean the female reproductive cell. In a kitchen, an egg means the entire object that rolls across the counter and breaks when it reaches the floor. Same word, two different boundaries. Start with the yolk. Inside the hen's ovary, a developing oocyte is loaded with nutrients in layer after layer. Most animal cells stay small because they need to move materials efficiently across their surface. A bird oocyte can become huge because its job is different. It is being packed with food for an embryo that may have to develop outside the mother's body for about 3 weeks. Most of the yellow mass is stored yolk. Fats, proteins, vitamins, minerals, and water arranged as biological reserve material. The more active cytoplasm and the cell's genetic machinery are concentrated near a small pale area on the yolk's surface, commonly called the germinal disc. That white dot is easy to miss. It can look like a crumb of cottage cheese stuck to the yolk. So the yolk is not a hollow bag with a normal tiny cell floating somewhere inside it. The yolk-filled oocyte is the cell. It has been stretched to an absurd size by the amount of stored material inside it. A chicken yolk is roughly a few centimeters across, large enough to see without a microscope, and large enough to pick up with a spoon if the membrane stays intact. Then the oocyte leaves the ovary. The release is called ovulation, and the yolk is caught by the funnel-shaped beginning of the oviduct. If sperm are present, fertilization can happen there, before the familiar egg white and shell have been added. If no sperm are present, the same basic production line continues anyway. A hen does not need a rooster to lay an egg. The yolk now travels down the oviduct. In one region, thick albumin is deposited around it. Farther along, 2 shell membranes form. In the shell gland, calcium carbonate is laid down to make the shell, a process that takes many hours. A thin protective coating is added near the end. From ovulation to laying, the whole trip usually takes about a day. This is why calling the shell part of the cell creates trouble. The shell is more like packaging manufactured around the oocyte. The albumin is packaging too, although useful packaging. It cushions the yolk, supplies water and protein, and helps protect the developing embryo. The chalazae, those twisted white cords people sometimes mistake for veins or an umbilical cord, help keep the yolk centered and the germinal disc facing upward. Crack a very fresh egg, and the white may stand up in a thick mound. Crack an older one, and it spreads into a thin puddle that runs toward the edge of the plate. The egg is still an egg, but its proteins and internal structure have changed during storage. That mundane breakfast detail makes the larger point. The white behaves as a separate material surrounding the yolk, not as the cytoplasm of one continuous cell. Now, fertilize the oocyte, and the one-cell claim becomes even less accurate by the time the egg is laid. The sperm and egg nuclei combine to form a zygote. Cell division begins while the egg is still moving through the hen. But the divisions do not cut through the entire yolk. There is simply too much dense yolk in the way. Instead, cleavage happens in the small disc of active cytoplasm sitting on top. Biologists call this discoidal meroblastic cleavage. Discoidal refers to the disc-shaped region. Meroblastic means the divisions are incomplete with respect to the whole yolk mass. The embryo starts as a thin patch of cells, rather than as a ball dividing neatly from one cell into 2, 4, 8, and so on through the entire egg. By the time a fertilized chicken egg is laid, the blastoderm can already contain thousands of cells. A standard developmental biology reference gives a figure of roughly 20,000. They are packed into a spot only a few millimeters wide on the yolk surface. So a freshly laid fertilized egg is not one cell. It contains a small multicellular embryo attached to a giant nutrient reserve, all enclosed in albumin, membranes, and shell. The supermarket version is usually different. Commercial laying hens are commonly kept without roosters, so most grocery eggs are unfertilized. The pale spot on the yolk is still there because the hen produced an oocyte, whether or not sperm arrived. In an unfertilized egg, that spot is often a compact white mark. Fertilized eggs may show a broader, ring-like blastoderm, although judging fertility by eye after cracking is not perfectly reliable. No, the stringy white chalazae is not a baby chick. No, a small blood spot usually does not mean an embryo was developing. Blood spots can occur when a tiny blood vessel near the ovarian follicle breaks during ovulation. They may look dramatic against a yellow yolk, especially when the egg lands under a bright kitchen light. But they are a production detail, not proof of fertilization. Double yolk eggs add another useful complication. They form when two yolks are released close together and become enclosed in the same white and shell. That does not create one cell with two yolks inside it. It means the hen's assembly line wrapped one outer package around two separately ovulated yolks. Young hens are more likely to produce them while their laying rhythm is still settling down. The shell itself is not a sealed ceramic wall. It contains pores that allow gases to move. After the egg is laid and cools, its contents contract and an air cell forms between the shell membranes, usually at the broad end. During incubation, oxygen enters and carbon dioxide leaves through the shell. Near hatching, the chick first breaks into that internal air cell and begins breathing there before it breaks the outer shell. This package solves several problems at once. The yolk provides concentrated fuel. The albumin provides water, protein, cushioning, and chemical protection. The membranes organize separate spaces. The shell slows water loss, provides mechanical protection, and still permits gas exchange. An egg sitting in a cardboard carton looks simple because most of the engineering is quiet. You can see the package come apart in a frying pan. Heat unfolds proteins in the translucent albumin, so they link together and turn opaque white. The yolk thickens too. Cooking destroys the living organization of the oocyte and changes the surrounding materials, but it also makes their different roles obvious. The white sets before a soft yolk does. They were never one uniform substance. Bird eggs are especially impressive because evolution shifted much of early development into a self-contained system outside the parent's body. Mammalian egg cells contain far less yolk because embryos such as ours obtain nutrients later through maternal tissues, and in placental mammals, the placenta. A chicken embryo has to bring much of its early food supply with it from the start. Ostrich eggs push this design further. Their yolks come from enormous oocytes, often described as the largest single cells found in living animals. Even there, the same warning applies. The yolk-derived oocyte is the cell. The complete shelled egg is a larger reproductive structure built around it. The phrase is memorable, but the boundary matters. So, is an egg one cell? An unfertilized chicken egg contains one gigantic oocyte at its center, but the shell, white, membranes, and air cell are additional structures. A fertilized egg has already begun dividing before it is laid, so the small disc on top of the yolk may contain many thousands of cells. The next time you crack an egg, look for that pale spot. Around it is a cell expanded into a food reserve, then wrapped in layers built by the hen. Breakfast is not just one cell. It is one cell plus an entire life support system, assembled in about a day and compact enough to fit in your hand.
Thanks for watching! If you enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. See you in the next one!